I think earlier you had asked the question of why haven't you told your story. The first time I told the story, of course, was at Bennett Elementary. I was one of two African Americans there, and a fifth grade teacher came to me and said, we're doing Virginia history, and we're doing that portion on Virginia history and desegregation, and would you come up and share your story? And I said, my story? I had never told it as a story because, to be honest with you, it's like those Virginia Tech kids knowing that they're going to go to Virginia Tech. Being in the movement was just what it was. Everybody I knew on that campus went to jail. So I thought my story's not that unique because all of us, we all did that. And when I told the story to the kids in fifth grade, they were fascinated by it. Unfortunately, they went home and said the assistant principal went to jail and she smoked cigarettes. And so they were like, see, I told you shouldn't have hired that girl over there. But Fanny's story, I don't think anyone's ever done this. And they say there's this expression that some people will die with the music in them. And it was like when I called her, she was just waiting for someone. She had a story to tell, but I think African Americans in general, we're givers, and we don't assert ourselves in a way that maybe other people could, in terms of saying we have a legacy or we have something. I don't know if we value the contributions that we make and consider them to be significant. I think I've told this story pretty much to my family, but I think when they see this, they'll say, well, we didn't know that about you. It's just something that you take for granted, or you don't think it's valuable, for lack of a better word. I don't know. But I think that is very interesting that he's doing this, and it is something that needs to be done. Because there's an expression that you can die with the music in you. And I think there's going to be a lot of people who will die with the music in you. When we were talking about the massive resistance, these people down in the basement at church were saying, oh, I was one of those people. I was one of those people. And it's like, so my contribution, my life was important. Important enough for someone to actually want to hear about you. Most of us will go through life, and the only time we'll see our name is when we're born and when we die. There's nothing in between. Most of us don't get our names in newspapers, or people want to hear what you have to say. And so I think that it's really important that he's doing this.
One of the things that you have given to the county is the Martin Luther King Oratorical Contest. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
First of all, the Martin Luther King Oratorical Contest is an outgrowth of the MLK celebration by Delta Sigma Theta sorority. And they were the ones that really started the initial King Day celebration. I was fortunate enough to be asked to be the chairperson of Social Action. I think at the time it was called Social Action. And again, things just came to place that was just very interesting. In reflection, I think back to that little I was the spirit of dawn speech in third grade. And I remember thinking that that really made me feel like I was somebody. And I also remember that with the Easter pieces, that the oral tradition is a part of who we are as people. And that growing up, you were required to learn a speech, and you had no choice, but you had to learn a speech for the Easter pieces. And when I work with kids in my school and realized that there were these African American kids in my school that were talkers, and they're still talkers, and they're still in the school system, and they get in trouble. And in the African American community, we call it, that girl can sure talk, or she runs her mouth. Oprah used to say, you sure can talk, because we're talkers. And so what happened for me was while I was at central office, and I was only one or two, I would walk over to the boardroom, and on the wall were all of the valedictorians. Annually they would put up pictures, and there was this, you know, parade of pictures. And I would ask myself, where are the black kids? Why are there no black kids on the wall? They're smart black kids out there. Why aren't they on the wall? So when I had the opportunity to do MLK, I was asleep one day on the couch in my house, and they were talking about the story of Martin Luther King. Of course, I had been in the marches, and I woke up just in time to hear them say something like to Martin, we was age 8 or 10, I'm not sure, and they said, well, Martin, you need to get ready for the oratorical contest. Just as I woke up, and I thought, Martin Luther King, oratorical. And so all of this stuff kind of came together, and I decided that, why are we paying people to come in and speak to us? They bring a message. We had great speakers come in for MLK. We had standing room only at first Mount Zion. And finally we moved to Garfield. I think we had 600 people. And that was a huge crowd for us. I think we had Dorothy Gilliam from the Washington Post. And so I thought, why are we paying people when we could probably have kids? Well, the Delta Sigma Theta, we all say we have high expectations, but we really don't sometimes. And I also had, what if you don't find this, because I brought the idea, what if you don't find a speaker? What if it's embarrassing if these kids can't do it? And I just had that faith that they really could do it. And again, things started to fall into place for me. My associate superintendent said, I threw it out to people, I'm thinking about doing this. And she said, oh, you know, the American Legion is the #1, the national oratorical contest. Their scholarships. And she said, all this material fell on my desk just like 2 or 3 days ago. I'll send it to you. Okay. Then there were people who came and said, well, I've done this kind of judging and I can help you with that. And so the first time I did it, I was really very nervous, and as a backup, they said, okay, we'll do it. The sorority said, we'll do it if you have a backup, an adult speaker. So we had the speakers, and we had someone to make congratulatory remarks. And told the person with congratulatory remarks, you may have to do a longer speech if these kids don't, you know, show up. And the night of the first judging, I could not believe all of us were, because we tried to make sure everything was done in a very precise, formal manner. And so we had, the kids were, the only people in the room were the judges. And I remember this I don't remember his first name, his name was Bell. And I heard him and I thought, oh my God, he sounds like Dr. King. But they were reciting part of his speeches. You could recite a speech, and so he was doing a speech, and this little girl named Nikki Schreiber, whose mother, by the way, I just ran into 3 or 4 weeks ago because this church in Stafford gave an award to me, and Nikki's mother came up and said, oh my God, Nikki is 30-some years old, and I have her dress, you should interview her. I have her all the pictures, I have the dress, we kept the dress, it meant so much to us as a family. And this, one of the gifted ed supervisors said, Lillie, don't worry, because I have a young man, and he's not African American, he's white, but he can recite the entire I Have a Dream speech. I said, really? And so he's going to be in the contest. So I said, we have speakers. And he did. And then Nikki Schreiber came up, about this big, little bobby socks, had to put her on a stool. She not only recited the King's speech, she gave it that finesse, and that she brought the audience into her. And so Nikki was one of the speakers, and there was another young lady, her last name was Green, I don't remember, but the first one was at Garfield High School, and instead of 600, we had 1,000 people. They all came, and people stood up and started cheering, and I could not believe it. I thought, what is going on? And they came to me. They said, "Oh my!" And they were weeping also. They said, "Finally, we see African American kids who are not football players, because the only time we saw our kids on the front page was for football, not for anything academic." And so it became like 1,000 people at Garfield, and the next year we had to move it to Hilton High School. And then it became so large at Hilton High School that the auditorium was filled, and we had another room, and people would rush to the King Days to be inside. They didn't want to end up in the gym with the videos, but people showed up. Then we formed a Martin Luther King choir, and this choir director said, "I'll do that," and he said, "We're going to call it 100 Voices." And I said, "Well, what if we get more than 100 voices?" He said, "I'm going for 100. I said, "You may get more than." And at one point we had 400 kids in the Martin Luther King choir. So then my husband was driving by Hilton Memorial Chapel, where the seating is 3,000. He said, "I think you need to move it to another place." And John Jenkins, along with the Hiltons, said, "You can use the chapel. And not only can you use the chapel, you don't have to pay for the chapel." And now we've got this relationship with the school system, Prince William County, the churches, businesses give us money, and it's this collaborative effort of people where churches and schools are working together.